All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I think we're ready to go. So thank y'all for being here today. And for those watching, we're also Zooming this. I apologize for the Zoom. You get to, if you're on Zoom, you get to see the back of my head apparently, presentation. But looking at our commercial class this morning, for commercial basics, we're looking this morning at how to find properties, how to do a property search, how to run comps, and how to work 3 methods for working up the valuation of a commercial property. These are some of the most challenging things that you will face in the realm of commercial business: finding property and then finding values for property. Lots of agents will complain about the difficulty of finding comps. That's because the commercial world is a little bit different than the residential world. We'll look at it this morning that a lot of the commercial listings are not put on the MLS. So there is no closing data, and so there is no closing price. And that's because a lot of commercial purchasers, investors, don't want that information made public. They don't want people to know what they're paying for the property because that will affect the taxes and everything else. So that is not usually disclosed. As a result, it can make it challenging to find sold comps when you're trying to price commercial property. So this morning we're going to look at how to find the property, how to find reliable comparative data, and then how to properly evaluate that as you are working on an evaluation needed by the buyer or by the tenant that you are serving. And these are types of commercial properties that are available. It can be office space, retail, industrial, institutional, like a hospital or a fire station or a police station, something like that. Investment properties, hospitality, hotels, restaurants, things of that nature, and multifamily, a gas station. Those are some of the big in-demand things right now. But as you are working with your clients, they're going to want one or multiple of these. So it's up to you to find the property and to know where to look. There are some parts of town where there is more of one type of property than other. There are some where there are industrial parks, where it's all warehouse space, flex space. Others where there are office condos, whole developments of just office buildings, large or small. So you need to be familiar with what is where. And of course, as everything's expanding and moving out now, especially in Williamson County, you see these new developments going up all the time. So just pay attention when you see a new development, when you see somebody breaking ground, you see a sign up for construction. Pay attention to what's coming in that area, just to tag it in the back of your mind so that you can remember what's going on and where you've seen things. You also can ask for a zonability report. One of the most important things that you need to know about a piece of property, even if it is an already existing building, is what it's zoned for. And zoning can be a little bit challenging to find. You can go for the city that the property is in. If it's inside the city limits, you will want to go to the planning and zoning on the city website, and you can search for their documents. You can look for a zoning map. You can look for, and they also always have a big long list of what can go and what cannot go in each zoning category. So you do want to keep in mind what we talk about in commercial real estate, the highest and best use. When somebody's looking at a property, especially if they're looking at land and they're wanting to do something with it, you want to know highest and best use. You want to know, based on the zoning, what is going to be the best use of that property, especially if you're talking to an investor. Because there are some people who want to buy a property and they have an idea for what they want to be there, but it just really is not a good location for that to be there. And that's a conversation then you need to have with the buyer to let them know that highest and best use wouldn't really match. There might not be any other type business like that close. It might not be a place where people looking for what they're wanting to build would be coming to look for what they want to build. So you just need to be aware of the surrounding area. Title companies, your commercial title reps will run a zonability report for you. If you ask them, they'll do that for free for you. And they've got software that does that. You give them the property ID or the address, and they will pull up and give you a 4 or 5 page report that shows you the property, the history of the property, the zoning of the property, whether or not that zoning is up to be changed or amended. And then it will also show you everything you can do and everything you can't do with that property so that you're sure right up from the start what you're looking at. If it is not in the city limits, you cannot run a zonability report, because if it's not in the city limits, it's not zoned. So if it's not zoned, what we'll talk about then is you need to check the deed restrictions. Because just because something is not zoned does not mean it is unrestricted. I've seen agents post that they've got properties for sale that are unrestricted, but there are deed restrictions that prevent commercial use or certain types of buildings to be built, things like that. So when you're looking at property, The first two questions you need to ask when you're talking to a listing agent or when you're doing your research is to know the zoning, if it is in the city limits, and the deed restrictions, if it is or is not. Either way, you're going to need to know the deed restrictions for the property. This is just a snippet from a zonability report on a piece of property that I had listed over on 183, and this was what it could be used for. The likely uses that were the best were a bar, a grocery store. You could put a house there. It was mixed use, a medical clinic or office, hotel, motel, multiple family, offices, general business, professional restaurant. Now I put this up because this is odd, because this is mixed use property, which means you can do just about anything with it. Most of the time for mixed use, what you see now is you see retail or office space on the first floor and residential upstairs, like the Domain. So this property was wide open. I've had other properties where I had the zonability report and it came back and there were only one or two things that you could do with the property. So if you know that your buyer has something in mind, that's useful information if you're serious about a property, looking at a property in a location, because if they can't do what they want to do without changing the zoning, then you've got to have that discussion. Maybe we need to find another property, or if they really want the property, of course you can talk to the city about changing the zoning. Don't do that in Austin. I'm kidding. You can do that anywhere. You can go to the city and you can talk to them and you can see if they can change the zoning. It will take a long time if you do that these days. There are a lot of applications for changes in zoning, and it can take probably at least a year to get that done so that you can just change the zoning to do what you want to do. Keeping in mind, you have to purchase the property, then work to change the zoning. So you've got at least a year before you can even start developing it, before you can do anything with the dirt that you've got or with the property that you've got. So always be aware of zoning and of deed restrictions. When we do talk about the commercial MLS, there is no commercial MLS, no standardized one place to go. We have, Austin Board MLS, you have CTX MLS through Williamson County. I'm also a member of Highland Lakes and of San Antonio, Sabor. So I've got MLS coverage over most of Central Texas. Start with our CREXI.com, and that's the Commercial Real Estate Exchange is what that stands for. Lands of America for land and for residential farm and ranch, and LoopNet, of course, LoopNet and CoStar. We'll only see about 20% of the listings that are available that you're looking in the area that you're looking for. Lands of America shows everything. CREXI shows everything. That's one of the reasons that CREXI actually has increased in popularity and in use in the last 2 years, is they really went hard after LoopNet by putting everything out there. So you can list properties for free. You don't even have to pay to get on the site and search for the site, and they will show you everything. So it's all there. The difficulty with these commercial MLS programs or software, places that you go, the sites that you go to, is that not all of them are going to give you pricing. You can find a property, get all the details about the property, you can get the zoning, all of that, but they don't always list what it is priced at, and it will just say unpriced, and that means it's up to you to call and find out. That's a little bit of a drag when you're searching for a property and you know you've got a budget and you find a whole bunch of properties that look like they might work and none of them are in the budget, but you don't know that till you call and get a hold of an agent, and that's 4 days later. Because these guys like to have their listings up, but they don't like to answer their phones. So keep after them, call them, text them, email them, message them through the site, however you can do it to get a hold of the information so that you've got pricing information. That means that if you are running a search based on price, understand there's going to be a bunch of properties that might be a fit that aren't going to show up in your search because they are not priced. So you just have to be diligent to begin and to find out. You can also look on the MLS. There are still commercial properties being listed on the MLS for Austin and for the others. Not as many. You will find land there, of course, with farm and ranch and with lots. There is some commercial space that's going to be listed. I ran an illustration for a client of mine. They wanted their property listed in the MLS and on the commercial sites. And I was showing them the difference. And the difference was we looked for their type property on the MLS, and there were 12 listings for the whole of Central Texas that was similar to what they were doing. There were over 2,000 on CREXI. So most commercial brokers are going to be using one of the commercial sites, not the MLS. Again, they don't want to disclose pricing. They don't want to disclose what they sell it for when they sell it. They don't even want to disclose ownership if you don't have to. And if you've noticed, that's changed, by the way, in the MLS. If you are listing property in the MLS now, you do have to put at least one name of an actual owner of the property in the MLS record. So that's something that's new. But CREXI, LoopNet, CoStar. LoopNet and CoStar, by the way, same company. It's just two arms. CoStar is research and comps. LoopNet is marketing, where you put the listing up. I use LoopNet. I do not use CoStar. That's just because I don't want to pay for it. They need me more than I need them. So if you do know somebody who has a subscription to CoStar, and there are times that the commercial title people will, and they will look things up for you and run comps for you if you ask them nicely. So just make sure that you've got good contacts in the title world, and they can help take care of that. Lands of America and Land Watch are both good for land. Not so much commercial use, but if you've got people looking for large properties or properties in the ETJ or outside of the city limits that they can use for whatever they want to use it for, these are good places to go to find that information out. CREXI is Commercial Real Estate Exchange. So
Territorial jurisdiction?
ETJ, yes, and that is extraterritorial jurisdiction is anywhere from 10 to 20 miles, depending on the city, outside of the city that the city will intend to annex in the future, and they will provide some fire and things like that, but otherwise it's in the county. There is no zoning. The city has no, and that's new. That changed just a couple of years ago. Used to, the city could enforce zoning in the ETJ. Now they cannot. And now, before they annex a property, the people who are property owners in the property being annexed have to vote and agree to be annexed. So two big changes that happened a couple of years ago for ETJ. But ETJ is great because then you can actually get out of the city limits and do whatever you want with your property, as long as there aren't any deed restrictions against that. And of course, watch out for commercial HOAs also, Property Owners Association HOAs, because those are a thing in some commercial developments as well, with common areas and with rules that you need to be aware of.
What about being grandfathered in should the annexation happen?
And that's something that gets discussed at the time of annexation. What is usually already existing, they allow to continue. You just, if you change it, and this is the difficulty, if you do get annexed, or if you are in the ETJ and you replat the parcel, then the city can tell you what to do with it.
Okay.
And so as long as it's like it is when it's brought in, it can stay. But if you make any changes, any updates, a change in use, if you replat any part of the property, then you have to bring everything up to code. Everything has to change. So you need to, your clients need to know that as well, because that's a big deal. That's a big headache. If they buy a property, think they can replat it, subdivide it, do whatever they want with it. If it gets annexed in the process, or if they do file a replat, then they're going to be subject to rules that they were not subject to before. And that can totally destroy and derail their plans. Another great place to find out about commercial properties are broker property exchanges. Property Information Exchange, we call them PIEs, commercial PIEs, PIE. This is a flyer for one that was actually, we had yesterday down at Independence Title, the CT CAR, which CT CAR is the Commercial Association of Realtors. Just like there's ABOR and just like there's Williamson County Association, CT CAR is the Central Texas Commercial Association of Realtors. And if you are a member of ABOR or Williamson County, you can join as a secondary member of CT CAR if you're doing commercial business. And it's a great place to network. They put on CE classes for commercial. They've just started the property exchanges back up for them, and they're some of the best because you will have, it covers all of Austin and Central Texas, and we even got some people that come up from San Antonio to attend the Central Texas. So it's a room full of anywhere from 20 to 100 brokers. They'll have somebody come from the city or somebody from lending or the finance world. They will teach classes, and then you get to talk about your properties, what your buyers are looking for and what you have listed for sale. And I've put together deals at these property exchanges where I'll stand up, share a need that I've got. Had clients that were looking for a restaurant. Another agent had a restaurant owner that was thinking about selling, and it wasn't even on the market yet. But because I told them I had somebody cash in hand ready, experienced commercial restaurant owners that were interested, we were able to put that deal together right there in the room. So got everybody on the phone and got everything done. So went and saw the property that afternoon. So person to person is, I think, the best way to find commercial property. And what you will find that's different in the commercial world as opposed to the residential world is that commercial brokers usually will bend over backwards to help you. They want to help one another out. So if they know of a property, even if it's not on market, or if they know of an agent who has something that's coming soon, or an agent that specializes in something and you have a need, and you ask them and they don't have what you need, they're going to tell you. They're going to give you 2 or 3 names to call so that you can find what you need. These in-person exchanges, and these I've listed 5 of them in the area. There is one a week, each week of the month, different places around town. First Thursday of the month at the Williamson County Property Exchange. It's at the Williamson County Association of Realtors building. The second Tuesday of every month, there is one for Leander and Liberty Hill that actually meets in Leander, right off Highway 183. The third Wednesday of every month, there's another Williamson County that's actually held here at our market center, right here in this room. Third Thursday of every month, there is one at noon in Manor. And then the CT Car, which has just started back up. The next one will be Thursday, June 9th, and I can send this information out to you so that you know when and where these are. What you'll need to do if you want to attend, let me know. Some of these are free. Some of these you have to pay for because you either get a meal or other things that are involved with it. You have to register to go. And if you want to go, I'd be happy to have you come as my guest and sit in and see and meet and talk to commercial realtors, see how it works, listen to the properties that are available, especially if you have a property or something that you are looking for that you need help finding. It's great to present that because everybody gets 2 to 3 minutes to present their properties or their needs. And a lot of times we'll go around the room, talk about here's what I need, and then we'll go around the room and say, here's what I've got listed. And that way you can take notes and make deals. We also have broker email lists that are available. CCIB is one of them. This is a paid email list and in fact, I set up a separate Gmail account just for this because I get so many emails. But there are, I think now, about 4,500 commercial brokers all over the state of Texas that are part of this list. So put your listings out, and I do this once a week where I'll send all my listings out or all my needs out, and you just send an email per property, send it to the list, and it gets broadcast to all of those agents. And that's what I did. I've got a Gmail account set up just for that, so all those emails come in, and it'll be 100 to 200 emails a day generally that are being shifted around. And so then because it's in Gmail, I can go in and I can search. So I can do keyword searches or topic searches for properties that I'm looking for. That's another really effective way to do that. If you've got a property that you need advertised, I'd be happy to share that. If you need me to search the list for something, I'd be happy to do that. If you're part of our market center here in Cedar Park, I believe it's $99 a year to join the list. So not that much of an expense for what you actually get to be connected like that. There's also an email list for KW Commercial for all of Southwest Texas, for the Southwest Texas region, which is us all the way down through Houston and the coast and into the valley. We get weekly emails from them as well with highlights. The best thing that you can do too is build your personal database by adding commercial agents, brokers, lenders, title reps, because all of that's different. It's a different person at the bank. It's a different person at the title company that you're going to deal with for commercial transactions. So build your list, your database, so that you have people that you can call. You're also going to be asked by your clients to recommend bankers and other things like that. So you need to know who is out there, who are the good land lenders, who are good for hotels, who are good for each of those different property categories that we talk about. Will have different lending regulations and rules, and some lenders will do some and not others. Some will just specialize and just do one type. So as you talk to bankers especially, find out what they specialize in, keep their information handy, because they'll be a great resource for you as well. And again, get to know who specializes in what. And by this, I mean other brokers. I am a generalist, which means I will generally do anything that comes my way. I'm not going to turn a lead down. But there are those who specialize. And in fact, now in the world of KW Commercial, they are now building out new coaching programs and new categories for each of these types of business so that you can specialize. So you can focus and just learn and just do industrial, just do hotels, just do office, retail, and specialize in that way. Some agents in town do that as you meet them, as you get to know them. A couple of names, you name their name, and you know, one guy that I know, he just does medical. That's all he does. So he's working with doctors all day long, building practices, building buildings, buying buildings, selling practices, all of that. Other people, there's some people that do vet clinics. There's some people that do hotels and restaurants. So just get familiar with who does what, especially if they specialize, because if you have a need come up, then you know who to call. Had this happen with Donna and I working on a hotel in Georgetown, and they are selling a hotel and buying a hotel. And so I called Ravi Singh, who is the top. He's in charge of the hotel division for KW Commercial. That's what he does. He works all over the place doing that. So just let him know what we were looking for, because he's going to know about it before it shows up anywhere else. So get to know who to know for what they specialize in. And if you want to specialize, I would encourage you, of course, I encourage everybody, start out in residential, try commercial. If you like it, and are ready to jump, I encourage people to jump in all the way, do one or the other. Nothing wrong with doing both, but really, you're going to grind your gears a little bit because it's a different mindset between the two. It's hard to go back and forth. So as you jump in and as you learn how to do this, then you can decide whether you want to specialize and what you want to focus on. Also, if you do have any questions, you can ask Matt, and he'll call me and I'll tell him what to tell you. So thank you for joining us. But anyway, so who you know matters in commercial real estate. Who you know, whether it is bankers, lenders, title, and especially brokers and other agents. What we also tell people to do is, if you're looking for property and you can't find it online, and if you're limited and if you're not sure, drive. Go look, because there are places that you will see signs out in front of properties and it won't be listed on any of the sites. What happens, by the way, is that some of the larger firms based out of Austin, some of the nationwide firms, will only do business agent to agent within their group. So they've got stuff coming in and going out, buying and selling, and they don't advertise because they don't need to talk to anybody else because they've got enough people in the house that's how they do it. Well, they still have to put a sign out there usually to let people know that it's for sale, just to do their due diligence for marketing the property. So it's not going to show up anywhere unless you drive by and see it. So if you know somebody's looking for a special type of property and a special location, drive it, look at, see what's available, check it, and be aware. You can stop, take a picture, be familiar with the areas. Again, know what you're looking for. If it is industrial, you need to know where to go look. If it is office space, you need to go know where the office developments are being built, where there's space available, so that you're just aware around town about what's going on. We're going to talk quickly then about finding comps. And again, reliable comparative data. This is one of the most difficult things to do in the world of commercial real estate. I've got a system down myself, and I'll show you how I do that. But you do want to go to the commercial MLS sites that I've already mentioned. That's a good place to start, and just look and see what property is there, see what property is under contract, see what property is closed. You probably will not get pricing for the closed properties. Crexi will run comps if it is publicly available. You can run comps on Crexi if you're a paid member, if you have a subscription. So if you do need comps and are having difficulty finding comps, please give me a call and I'll be happy to help you through that process. But you want to search, you want to do a CMA through the MLS just to check, because there are things that are there, especially if it's farm and rancher lots. But know that the sample size is going to be inadequate to really formulate a correct value. So the MLS will get you started, but then you need to take it to the next level by looking at the commercial sites. When I search for properties for comps, I search for active and pending and closed. Most of the time when you're wanting a value, you're looking at CMA Snap, of course. You're looking at pending, and you're looking especially at closed, because that closed date is going to help determine market value. Well, what's the junk that's missing? CMA Snap does not work for commercial properties because commercial properties aren't in the MLS enough for us to actually get a good sampling data size. So do your research, find out what's available. And what I like to do is I like to trust the other commercial brokers out there. And if there's a whole bunch of properties all in one area, all listed for sale, all at about the same price, I want to determine what those averages are to see what everybody else thinks that it's worth. And basically just kind of crowdsource my valuation that way by finding out what other people are listing things for, especially if I'm seeing that they're listed and they're selling rather quickly. You can also search tax records. Go into the tax record and find out who owns the property. Find out if there is a mortgage on the property, depending on the type of property. Talk to a lender, find out how much is required down for that type of property, and you can kind of do your math backwards to figure out what they might have paid for the property. And contact brokers that you know who have listings similar to the property that you're pricing, and ask them for help. Every once in a while we do in the CCIB email list, we'll get an email that goes out to everybody and says, help, I need help with comps. Here's the property, who's had experience, who's done something in that area, so that we can all pitch in and help one another price these things. When you are searching, if you're going to be searching for sale or for lease, you need to be familiar with both and with the rates that are there, whether it's for sale or whether it is a property for lease. You search based on the property type. I always do a search within about a 3 to 5 mile radius, depending on where the property is. Sometimes you have to go broader than that to get a good sampling, depending on what kind of product it is. But do a 3 to 5 mile search. Look for similar properties, search for active pending, the difference in rental rates for the different types of businesses and properties. What you will know is that office space, depending on where it is in town, we'll start at the bottom. If you're industrial space, you might be $12 a square foot a year. When you are talking rental rates, by the way, commercial, it is not usually monthly, it is an annual rate because you're looking at an annual rate. So if you want to know what the actual charge per month is, divide it by 12. So if you've got $12 per square foot per year, that's actually $1 a square foot a month is what you're looking at. For warehouse space, you'll pay air conditioned. If you move up to office space, that can be anywhere from $15 or $16 a square foot all the way up to $25. Retail is even higher as you are looking what things are leasing for in town in the different categories. And that just is something to kind of keep, top of mind so that you're just aware, because you're going to general questions. And it's, I misspelled the word track agents, social media posts. Social media, they're using Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn to post their listings and post when it goes under contract, and they're going to post when it's sold. If they're not, they should be, because that generates leads, that generates business, because people see that you've got listings and that you're selling things. So track that, follow these people, friend them on social media, and track what they're doing, because that also is useful data to have. Here's a spreadsheet just for an example. These are for some comps that I ran on a piece of property in Territorial County that we're going to be listing, 10 acres with a spring-fed pond. And so we looked at lots. It's 10.01 acres. So I looked at anything from 4 acres all the way up to 40 acres within about a 10-mile radius there in the county. And I just broke it down. Here's the acres. Here's the how many square feet, the listing price, how much that works out to per square foot. And that then gives me an average to work off of, so we know where to list it. You see, I've got several sold properties, a couple under contract, all the rest are still active on the market. So we look at those. Based on this information for this lot, average price per square foot came out to be 42 cents a square foot. It actually has some features that are better than most of these. Like I said, it's got a spring-fed pond, it's got a nice location, nice view, level topography. So I'm actually recommending we list it at 61 square foot. So if you know anybody who wants 10 acres in Territorial County, vacant with a spring-fed pond, we're going to be listing it for $295,000 tomorrow. So let me know. But this is just one example of how you can run a comp and how you can share that information. We'll finish then, and we're going kind of quickly because we just got about 15 minutes left, but we'll finish then looking at valuation methods, the 3 ways to determine the value of a property. Now, a lot of this it hasn't changed. It's still one of 3 ways that you're going to find the value. It has gotten challenging, though, because obviously everything is appreciating more quickly than usual, especially land. You make announcements about Disney and other things like that, and we saw people take the property off the market and come back in a day, and it was 3 times what they had it listed for, because they know what's coming in the area. We're to the point that when we find land for people, what we're telling them, if it turns out that the zoning doesn't work, if it takes you a long time to get anything done, in 2 years, you may want to drop your project, turn around, sell the land for what you can get for it, because it's only going to go up. We're watching trends, and we're looking at 7 to 10 years of growth. No guarantees, but we're looking at 7 to 10 years of growth. Type to determine the value of a property is the market or sales comparison method. And this is look and see if it's improved or unimproved. Look at location. Are there things that make it above average? Is it on a hard corner? Does it have good frontage, visibility, accessibility? Is it surrounded by nice buildings, nice properties, similar business types? And you could also look for things that cause you to depreciate it less than average. So if there are things that would cost a lot of money to fix up or to change or bring up to code, in as you're doing your work, to basically here you're just being a financial analyst. Now I'm looking at property, I'm going to tell you what I think the valuation is, not an official appraisal, not a tax appraisal, a market value based on comparison of similar properties. The second, the cost approach. And the cost approach, you are looking at land, and you're going to break this up. You look at the value of the raw land, and then add to that the cost to replace any improvements on the land. So if you've got a 1 acre lot with a building on it, then you want to know what would that acre lot sell for. And this is the same thing you get, by the way, on your tax appraisal. You know this with your house. You get a land value and an improvement value. That's what we're doing. We're going to look at the value of the land, the replacement cost of the building at today's rates, minus depreciation. There are two types of depreciation: curable, which means it's out of date or worn out items that can be replaced or can be updated, upgraded, and incurable. Incurable means you can't fix it. Things that can't be repaired, if it's poor design, if it's a poor location, things that you have no control over that you can't change. So you're looking at land value plus improvements minus depreciation. An example, good example recently is a commercial broker friend of mine was asked to list an abandoned fire station in Round Rock. They had built a new fire station and needed to get rid of the old one. And at that point, how do you put a value on a fire station? Those don't come up for sale very often. And if they do, it's not like it's a fire department buying it. So it's going to be, you're going to have to be changing the use. And he had a pretty creative approach to that, figured out a value and looked at if you divided it up and used it to lease space out purposes or a restaurant. And he had somebody come in and draw up some designs, put together this big plan for it, determine the value, and socially had some interest in it because it's a unique property. It's not every day you can buy an old fire station, and they're already working on it to change it to what it's going to become. So it can be challenging with the cost approach. A lot of times the cost approach is not the first way they go. Usually it is going to be the market sales or the income approach. And the income approach is especially good for space that's being leased. If it's an investor that's buying it, not an owner user, because the income approach is based on the income the property generates. And this one can get wild because you can look at an appraisal and you can do a market sales approach and see what it's worth. But then when you see what it's generating to justify a cap rate, your capitalization rate, your income that you're making, your return on investment, you can charge even more for it because of what it's generating. And the illustration here, the picture here is a gas station that I had listed. And the only difficulty with this property was that it was not actually operating. So it was not generating. So for that, we just had to do a market sales approach. What do we expect somebody to pay for a 1 acre corner lot in Giddings, Texas, with a gas station ready to go, but not currently operating? If it had been operating, and I told them, I ran the numbers, that if it had been operating based on the last people who'd been running the gas station there, we could have asked twice what we were asking for the property because you could justify that based on the rental rate. So your capitalization rate, your cap rate, everybody wants to know, what's the cap rate? What's the cap rate? That is your net operating income. What do you have left over after expenses as a profit, as net income on that, and comparing that to, dividing that into the value of the property. So if you know what it's generating, you can do the math and figure out what you can sell it for. If you know what it sold for, then you can actually work that backwards and figure out what kind of cap rate you can advertise and what kind of rental rates you can charge. Those will depend, by the way, depending on the type of property as well. If you're looking at a hotel, hospitality, a 4 to 5% cap rate is killing it. Apartment complex, 4 to 5% cap rate is awesome. You get into office space retail, you want 6 to 7% or more. I saw a property, I'm going to check it out this afternoon. I saw a property this morning that was listed, and I believe it's an apartment complex, and they posted it had an 11% cap rate. I have not seen a property with a 10 or 11% cap rate in 3 years. So I want to see if they're being honest. I want to see if they're telling the truth. You take the value, you take the expenses, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, management, and then you figure out what that value actually is. The triple net lease, by the way, that is what covers the expenses. If it's a triple net lease, that means the expenses are being paid by the tenant, not the landlord. And that means property tax, insurance, and management fees are all covered. Now, you might run into properties that are hard to price. This is a challenge, that you have properties that are in the ETJ, properties that have difficult zoning or that have difficult restrictions, or properties that you can't find comps for. There may be issues like the location, like floodplain. This property is property we've got listed down by Creedmoor, and we've got it listed, and we've had some interest, but it's going to be difficult to find somebody to use this like we would hope that it would be used, because about 40% of this property is in the floodplain. For a commercial property, what that means is you can't build a structure anywhere on that floodplain. You can try to mediate it, but that's expensive, so kind of limited. You can do surface storage, something like that, over a floodplain. Unlike a residential where you can build on the floodplain, you have insurance. Commercial will not allow you to build there. You have problems with, and this too is on septic, so you would have problems. We could do multifamily unless it's sewer's coming up for Freeborn, but it's not there yet, still 4 miles away, and that gets user for it, but it's a little bit challenging. So you need to know that we're looking at evaluating that, coming up with a price. The other real challenge is that a lot of people are getting into commercial property investing who have only done residential previously. And because it is a new world for them, they think they can make a killing in commercial, but they think everything is more expensive in the commercial world. And so they have unrealistic expectations. An illustration here is we looked at a piece of property and we valued it at about $5 million, $5.2 million. And the seller wants almost $8 million for it. So everybody is interested to look at it and then sees the price and they don't call back. So we're hoping that values may rise. There is a property actually just a mile from here that just went under contract that actually was listed at about $100,000. I think just $100,000 less per acre than what we're charging at the 8 million. So that kind of justifies and shows that maybe it's moving that way. We might actually be able to get it done close to the price that they want. But it's always fun dealing with unrealistic sellers because in the commercial world, it takes longer to sell things. I've got land listings now that are still marketing that I've got people looking at. Some that have been under contract have fallen out of contract because the city didn't approve zoning that I've had listed for 3 years. And then by the time we get under contract, that feasibility period could be 9 or 10 months or a year before we ever get to closing. So these commercial deals, some of them are done quickly. It's funny because the cheapest, littlest, easiest ones actually end up being the biggest headache. But the big deals, they do take more time to do this. And there is a difference between an owner user and an investor, what they're looking to do with the property, because an owner user is going to look at that completely differently than an investor who just wants to know, is it generating income? And if it's not, what kind of income can it generate? People will buy things, they will invest in things not leased out, and then we will lease it out for them. But we have to be realistic with them. If you're going to pay for the property, then here's what we can lease. Everybody's asking for spaces that are already generating something that is for sale that already has a tenant that's paying. And they want to know, is it a long-term lease? Are there renewals involved? So that they can do the math and figure out if that's worth it. If a property comes on the market that has a tenant already in place, already paying, that will not last on the market very long if it's priced right. It will move quickly because people are looking for something that's already generating, because that's just turnkey. Always close a class, lease on Highway 29 for the building that's pictured here, 3 acres plus a 1,260-foot office building. And just having my sign on highway, or up there on 29, right near 183, just before you get to Liberty Hill. It's actually in Liberty Hill now that they've expanded. Having that sign, that visibility, we got calls all day long as people looking for land, looking for something to do on Highway 29. And if this didn't fit, guess what? We picked up 3 more clients that are looking for land. One of them is about to go into contract on 2 acres on the other side of the street. They didn't have an agent. They just saw the sign and they called. So lead generate by getting listings, getting your sign in the yard. The other question is to ask, who do you know that has a job? If you know somebody who has a job, that's commercial lead. They work somewhere. Anybody who works somewhere, they're either working for a company that leases space or owns space. They may need to upsize, downsize. They might need to open new locations. They might need to renew their leases. Have conversations with them about this, because this opens the door for you to introduce yourself as someone who can help them with their commercial leads. When you find that, then put it to us for a nice referral fee and let us handle it. And you might have to wait several months, but then you get a check and didn't have to do anything but start a conversation and make a connection. Ask for business where you do business. We've made it easy today to not go in the store and to do everything curbside and pay at the pump. Go in and talk to people, talk to business owners and managers, because if they are in business, especially if it's a gas station or convenience store, they know people, or they're part of an investment group that are always looking to buy more. Have that conversation with them, let them know what you do and ask how you can help. And you will find out almost immediately that you have got a new client and you've got some property to go look for. And then, like I said, when you discover a commercial lead, you can work it to learn the business, to see if you like commercial business, or you can refer it. Either way, you get paid. What we'll do is for your first 3 commercial deals, you do have to work with a commercial agent here in the market center, just for competency and just for oversight for your paperwork. Documents are a little bit different, a lot more legalese, a lot more things that it's easy to miss in that. So we want to watch you do that before we set you off to go on your own. But we're happy to do that. We're building a commercial division here and looking forward to agents who prefer working with numbers, with finances, with details, with all the legalese. A lot of residential agents, not as I put down, but a lot of residential agents aren't into the details like that. They aren't into the numbers like that. You have to be, to some extent, to be a realtor. And when we talk in the world of Keller Williams, we talk about the 80-20. You're good at 20% of the stuff you do. The 80%, that's what you have an admin assistant for. Give that to them. And usually what you're giving them and your transaction coordinator are the documents, the contracts, the numbers, all of that. Well, if you like doing that kind of stuff, that's what commercial real estate is all about. We are financial advisors, really, even more than dealing with property, to help people invest, grow their business, and make money. And we get to help them do that. We've got just a few minutes left. Any questions? Yes, sir.
How do you get listings?
How do you get listings? That's another class that I've already taught. Client, you're not just going to do one transaction with them. They will have multiple things going on, or they will have friends in business and other people. And when they trust you and know that you do a good job for them, they're going to refer you. That's for our group here in our market center for commercial. I think it's almost 65% of our business is referral based.
75% last year.
75% last year, referral based. So get your listings, get your sign in the yard.
Same title company.
Commercial.
Okay.
And know who they are, and we can. Tommy Holmes at Capital Title is the fastest and the best. Independence also will do a zonability report. Lisa Beard.
Okay.
And there's
TNT's, I think TNT.
yeah, Audra Bassett, TNT. They can do it as well. And so that's what I said. Get to know your title companies that you already know, that you already prefer, and ask them who does their commercial business in their office, and go out for a cup of coffee with them and just talk to them, get their perspective of things. They'll love to talk to you and tell you about it. And that's with Tommy. I mean, we've got a property, send him a property ID and an address, and it takes him about 4 minutes to run the thing and get it back to you. So he just plugs it in and it prints it out and he sends it to you so that you've got all that information. That's the easiest way to do it, so that you're not having to hunt and peck through the internet to find that information. You won't get it for every property, but for those that are there, it's. And if you do ask them to do a zonability report and you do list the property, please close it with them. Obviously. Yes.
Or even if you're not sure, is this in the city limits, or
Right.
It's right next to the line. Where does this fall? Do you run it and it's not showing up, so it must be ETJ or it must be county?
Yeah. They can do all of that right
I
away.
have a question in
Yes.
regards to deciding if you want to do residential or commercial. How, at least in your case, or in Matthew's case, if he can answer that, how did the transition look like from going to residential?
For my act, I was not a residential agent, but I was a director. I was managing 9 residential agents. So I was hiring, interviewing, training, overseeing all the paperwork, all documentations, 9 agents. And so I knew the residential world really well, teach it really well. With that many agents working, we uncovered commercial leads. And so they would start bringing them to me with questions. We don't have residents will refer. In fact, several residential teams refer all their commercial business to me. Well, I worked it for 6 months and loved it so much. It became difficult for me going back to the residential because I was shifting gears so often that finally I said, I'm going commercial. It was a little bit challenging, but not really. I mean, it's so much of it. If you're good at the residential, you'll be good at commercial if you can do the numbers, if you can keep up with the details. Finding, estimating things. Like I said, the things that helped me was I was really good at doing CMAs and doing valuations, and hit the challenge that it was hard to find that data in the commercial world. So I developed my own way to do it. And the justification that I can show, because I'll show some commercial agents how I do comps, and they're like, well, that doesn't work. My close rate to list price is 97%. I think that means I'm pricing it right where it needs to be. And that's over the last few closing business. That's your justification.
Where was that? Where was that property?
Mathis Reynolds on 29, just before you get to 183.
Heading,
So headed toward Liberty Hill.
west towards Liberty Hill. Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be a landscape
Oh, yeah.
On the right,
place.
isn't it?
Yeah. Yep. How about you, Matthew? Well, Matthew had experience buying and selling businesses.
Mine is unique, right? So I had had 7 years with a Fortune 500 company. I was an operations manager for them. Opened up 2 of their facilities, ran one of them for a period of time. Found myself on a corporate M&A team, gobbled up 2 different competitors. So it was kind of a unique perspective, specifically from my operations and supply chain management background. But I was one of like 20 people on a team that did a slice of the pie of the total work. So I dipped my toe into that world of commercial real estate. Got out of that, got into business brokerage, and I was on a team of like 5. So I kind of learned a lot more, doing a lot more. Still didn't have a license, still wasn't licensed in the state of Texas. And then I quickly learned the value of being licensed, went out and got it. And that's when I joined KW. Did residential and arguing. Am I still being recorded on YouTube?
I can stop it if you'd
I'll
like.
be polite.
Okay.
Dealing with particular clients that find the right neighborhood and the right school district and the right floor plan and everything about it. Love the yard, love the landscaping.
The emotional.
And then they go, oh, I can't deal with these floors. I cannot live in it. Who would paint the wall that color? I cannot be a part of this. I gotta go. I'm like, you're out of your mind. You walk away from this deal. I'm not helping you. I mean, you're sitting, you're arguing over such mundane things. That's the residential. That's the emotion in buying and selling houses, right? Well,
yeah.
Who decorates like this? I ain't doing business with these people.
Yeah.
Versus a commercial deal, is it in the right location, ballpark? Does it have the access I need? Does it have the size and layout that I need, or is it flexible enough where I can modify it? Is it priced in the ballpark of my budget? And they don't care. Yeah, the rest is a fart in the wind. I mean,
It's numbers. Yeah, it's numbers.
right?
It's an investment.
Does the numbers work, and will my business be efficient in this space?
Yeah.
And that's how my is. And I can't deal with the soccer mom complaining about the hot pink wall in
Yeah.
her daughter's closet or whatever. Yeah, I can't do that. So I still do residential. I have to. I mean, I need to, but.
And that's what you'll see. I tell everybody, if you're looking into jumping into commercial full time, you need to give yourself at least a year or a year and a half to get up and going with your commercial business, because it will take you that long to get going.
My first commercial deal, I was talking to the guy for a year before I even got the listing or the listing.
Yep.
Right, and then it took what 4? We were within 4 months. We were under contract.
Yeah.
So don't discourage if it doesn't happen right away.
Right. It will not happen right away in commercial.
Okay.
It might, but no, usually you need to be ready. And that's what I said, if you want to transition, we'll help you map that out to see what that looks like, but you need to be prepared. And if agents are coming in, if an agent's coming in brand new to residential or commercial, I tell them you need 6 to 9 months of income in the bank before you do anything, because it's going to be a ramp up before you start closing business.
Yeah, how do you feed yourself? And if the timeline, like some of your land timelines are 2, 3, 4 years.
Right.
You got to be doing other things while you wait on that.
Yeah.
And that's where I am. I'm at 50-50. I have some stuff in the works, but I gotta eat.
And that's within my first year. It was when I jumped 6 months into it. I jumped, and I just jumped full ahead. I never did residential other than the director of operations part. I did for friends, family. I would do transactions, but jumped right in, and it took a year to get up and going. Thankfully, we were at a position where we could do that. But that's what it took. So we tell everybody it's going to take a year in commercial to get up and going. Now, once that happens and you get to business, I mean, Matthew saw it. You did your second year. You did what?
Well, no.
In 3 months, you did as much volume as you had done for the previous year.
Oh yeah, I did more in the first quarter than I did first year, and I did more in January of this year than I did all of last year.
Right.
So
and that's
it's exponential.
Once it starts to roll, it is exponential.
It takes time.
But it just takes time to get going.